Hello, this is Eric Miller, and I am going to answer these questions. There are 12 questions. I'll read them off together, then I'll take them one by one. Since when have you been storytelling? Number 2, why and when did you shift to Chennai? From where? Then you have another number 2, let's call it 2A. What is your all-time favorite story to tell children? 3. Do you read from existing books or spin stories? 4. What is your work process? How do you practice? 5. Important points while storytelling. 6. How can storytelling help children? 7. Did someone tell stories to you when you were young? 8. How is the storytelling scene in Chennai according to you? How has it evolved over the years? 9. What are the different kinds of storytelling? What's your method like? 10. Tell us about a memorable storytelling session. 11. Where do you live and does it help you to spin stories? So these are enough questions to create answers to write a book. But I'm going to try to do it all in just a few minutes. Number 1, since when have you been storytelling? Well, I really discovered storytelling when I was a teenager back in New York City in the 1970s. At that time, I discovered there was such a thing as professional storytelling, and I studied with a lady named Laura Sims, who is still working in New York today, and I hope she'll be visiting Chennai next year. Why and when did you shift to Chennai from where? Well, I was born and raised in New York City. I studied with Laura in New York. Then I went on to do a PhD in folklore in Philadelphia at the University of Pennsylvania. And along the way, I visited Tamil Nadu for the first time in 1988, 26 years ago. At that time, I was really studying Silappadigaram. And I walked from Pumpuhar to Madurai, and then later from Madurai to the Kerala border to do research on the Silappadigaram, the Epic of the Anklet. So I was here in 88, 89, 90, and then I went back to the States. I visited once in the 90s, but then I really came back to stay in 2002. I came for my PhD fieldwork, which I did for 2 years in the southern mountains with the Kanikaran tribal people, and then I came to Chennai and settled in Chennai, and I've been living in Chennai mostly since 2005. And now I'm fortunate to have married an Indian lady. She is a psychological counselor. She's a native of Chennai, and we live in Chennai. We have a 9-year-old daughter. We were married around 2006, 2007. Okay, so yes, because I living in New York City, I wanted to study in some ancient culture. I chose India, and I chose Tamil Nadu because of the story of the Epic of the Anklet. I read an English translation, and I was very impressed that Kannagi could speak to the king and win her case, and that the king would listen to her. Most important. I'll send you a link, if I didn't already, to my essay about Silappadigaram, about the variations in the story and similar stories. That will give you a sense of my interest in the story. I wrote that essay. I finished it just this morning. My favorite all-time story to tell children, certainly not Silappadigaram, that is not a children's story. I like the character Curious George the monkey. You know, he lived in the jungle, and then the man came from the city and brought the monkey to live with the man in the city. And then when the man goes to work, he works in a museum, the monkey gets in all sorts of mischief in the flat they live in. And often the monkey makes a big mess. But it's not his fault, because he was just being curious. So I like those stories. I guess sometimes I feel that I'm clumsy and I get in trouble. And so I like to read about the monkey who gets in trouble. But because he always gets out of it. He always says he's sorry and they forgive him. Do you read from existing books or spin stories? The type of storytelling that I'm trained in by Laura is we do not memorize the words. We do not read from the books. We get a clear picture of the episodes of the story, and then we describe it. We use our hands, our bodies, our voice, and to mime it, and then sometimes we act out characters. When we act out characters, that's where the emotion really comes. What is your work process? How do you practice? Well, as I say, you develop the story. It's as if it's a three-dimensional movie inside you, and then you walk through it, and you practice describing it and acting out characters along the way. So it's not primarily about words. It's about spoken or written. It's about the actions that happen. And each story has an inner center, which is about the emotions involved and the relationships between the characters. And that's what makes stories universal, and that's what you really want to reach when you're telling a story. 5 important parts while storytelling. Okay, I've already said, be the narrator part of the time, but at time, act out the characters. And I'll tell you a secret. When you act out a character, you put your listener in the position of the character who your character is talking to. If my wife said to me, say my wife said to me, Eric, be sure to lock the door. And then I said to her, of course, I lock the door every night. So when I told that little story, first it was my wife said to me, Eric, be sure to lock the door. You, dear listener, are put in the position of Eric. And then I switched roles and I said, Magdalene, she's my wife, Magdalene, don't worry, I'll be sure to lock the door. I lock the door every night. So there you're put in the position of Magdalene. So that really entrances people, that they get put in the position of the other character. They often don't even realize it's happening. But to me, that's one of the most fun things about storytelling. So I'm going to give what I just described, all 5 points to that. How can storytelling help children? Well, it helps them with public speaking, because storytelling is public speaking when you tell what happened, and also when you act out the characters, that's acting. It's all about expressing feelings, becoming more articulate, being able to describe details of things in a sensible way so that we can be coherent when we tell what happened or what we hope will happen or when we review what happened. It's all about becoming more articulate as we talk about imaginary and real events. Did someone tell you stories when you were young? Certainly, my mother and my father and others. How was the storytelling scene in Chennai? How has it evolved? Well, I've been leading workshops now for mothers and fathers, educators, business trainers, adults for 10 years, since 2006, 2007. So about 350 people have taken my 7-session workshop. I like to lead 7 sessions on Sunday mornings from 10 to 12 on 7 consecutive weeks. So of the 350 people who've taken that workshop, 30 now are professional storytellers, and we have an inner group of professional storytellers. We call ourselves the Chennai Storytellers. And so there's a lot now going on, especially in schools. We help teachers individually and as a team. We help teachers use storytelling to teach any subject. What are the different types of storytelling? Well, different types. I will only call an event storytelling if people are in the room and it's not memorized and you're not reading it. If you're memorized or reading it, I call that reciting. So storytelling is you improvise, you act out the characters, whether you're telling your own experiences or grandmother stories, doesn't matter. A memorable storytelling session? Well, because I love the story of Kannagi so much, it's very memorable to me how she tells the Pandyan king about how her husband was innocent. You know, she says to the king, I have 1 anklet remaining. And she breaks it open, there are rubies inside. Please, she says, open your wife's remaining anklet. They open it, there were pearls inside. Kannagis had rubies, the queens had pearls. Then Kannagi said, open the anklet my husband was trying to sell. They open it, and it matches Kannagi's. It's also rubies. So then the king realizes he was wrong. So she told the story about how her husband was innocent, and she proved it. To me, that's a very memorable storytelling session. It's a story about real-life events. Where do you live? I live in Chennai, near the middle of town, near the Gemini flyover. How does it help you spin stories? Well, it helps me be in close touch with many different people and many different events, so I can attend many events because it's a central location. Okay, thank you very much. Those are my answers. This is Dr. Eric Miller, PhD in folklore, University of Pennsylvania, director of the World Storytelling Institute, which is an NGO based in Chennai. Today is Monday, October 17, 2016. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.